Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. Zack Cherry is me, and my co-host over here is...
She's got a big hole. She's sinking. Eddie of Edward is Truth.
And we've also got our special guest today. Hello.
Yep. Hello. How is everything going today?
Hey, and this is Jason Voorhees Galatello, who is our editor. Yep. He's joined us previously when we talked about Friday the 13th, the final chapter in part 5. And today we're covering Ghost Ship, released October 25th, 2002. And Jason, you felt very inclined to join us for this one, so...
Yeah. I mean, I always like the Dark Castles, kind of a fondness for them, and you had already done all the other ones, I think previously coming on as editor, so I figured this was the last one. I think they did Gothica too. I think that one, that one wasn't really like a remake, or really, it was a completely different style. It seemed like from. I've never seen it, but just from the trailers and bits I've seen from it, it seems kind of like a different style than the other.
It's not in the vein of the ones that we've covered at all.
Well, there's more from Dark Castle. I think that it's just like they're fewer and far between after the early 2000s, and they sort of ventured off into more like action fantasy or sci-fi. Like there's probably the most well-known horror that they've done since this slew of remakes and what's in between is Orphan and Orphan First Kill. But
they did Orphan. I didn't realize that was Dark Castle. Okay. All right.
Yeah, but they also have something called The Reaping, which came out after House of Wax with
House of Wax. I completely forgot about that one. Yeah. So, you guys did that one too. Yeah, already.
Yeah, so there's a few, but I don't think it ever reached the height of where it was, like what their initial
turn of the century.
Yeah, what their initial, I guess, like business model was, which was to remake the William Castle movies. Like that literally just lasted for their first two, which was House on Haunted Hill and then 13 Ghosts, and then Ghost Ship was the third one, and they kind of went in a completely different direction. And I'll just say right out the gate that I don't really care much for this one. I feel that this is sort of like their first miss, just in terms of like what they were kind of offering. Edward, you said once when we were talking about the 13 Ghosts or that episode that Dark Castle is kind of like a carnival fun house, like almost like a roller coaster ride, and I feel like that quality is not present in this movie at all. And I think a lot of that has to do with the production itself, because Ghost Ship initially was going to be a much darker psychological thriller, which initially I believe was called Chimera. It's actually if you could just go to Wikipedia of all places, and it's there just in terms of what the story was. But the initial writer was Mark Hanlon, and the story for what it was supposed to be was like kind of what it says here is there was a relatively bloodless psychological thriller that was more so focused on these members of the salvage crew who end up getting stranded aboard the vessel, and it like everything that's happening is more it sounds more like Session 9 of just something that we have covered before, where there's like a killer amongst them, and it's more just like the mystery of like who it is, and the psychological aspect of exploring these characters, especially in this setting where they're stranded in the middle of the ocean. And what ended up happening is they brought in John Pogue, I think I'm saying his name properly, and he just kind of did a full rewrite of the script and made it more of a supernatural thriller of just like what we know it as here. So both of those writers are credited, but it's largely John Pogue's screenplay that makes up this movie.
Ugh.
Be nice.
Well, I'm curious because, like Jason, you said that you're fond of the Dark Castle movie. So this one is included in terms of like your favoritism toward this particular franchise.
Yeah, I mean, like this, I would say I like this better than House of Wax. I like, but compared to the other two, House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts, no, this is definitely the lesser of the trilogy. And I guess it's, I mean, yeah, it's better than the direct to video Return to House on Haunted Hill too. But yeah, it definitely, it falls short. I mean, I like, and I said, oh yeah, man, I could do this one. I liked all the kind of like the haunted vessel things. I like this. I like Event Horizon. When I was a little kid, I was 5 years old when Disney's The Black Hole came out, and like that kind of it was the same thing. It kind of like left a real impact on me because it was kind of like this haunted kind of a setting, and you have the what happened to the crew and that kind of mystery. So I like movies like that. I liked this up until about the last 20 minutes. I think is where it really it kind of falls apart. I think. Okay. I know everybody always says that the first kill, the group, the wire kill and everything like that. Everybody always talks about, you watch the first 5 minutes, you don't have to watch the rest of it. That's actually not my favorite part. My favorite part is when you find out what actually happened. When they do that flashback, and but then, like, as soon as that's over, then that kind of falls apart after that. I feel.
Okay. Yeah, that part's interesting for sure. It's definitely very stylistic the way that they do it. Mm-hmm. I've heard people like rave like, oh, the Ghost Ship has one of the best opening scenes, and I mean, like, I wouldn't say that it's a best opening scene or like in a category of best opening scenes, but it certainly is a very memorable kill. And or series of kills, and I think that's something that Dark Castle is kind of. Yeah, something that Dark Castle has kind of become renowned for, at least like this being the third one, is bodies getting bisected or split in half. Like in 13 Ghosts, we saw the lawyer, walking back split. Into the glass door. So it's almost like just a bigger version of that. Like they keep outdoing themselves. And I think that there was something in House of Wax. I'm trying to remember what someone getting split in half. I'm sure it was there. I can't remember off the top of my head. There was...
Someone got decapitated. Somebody had kind of like the face pulled off with the wax and everything like that. I don't think anybody was split like that. But I mean, but there was some... There was... I think the part where they pulled the face off, I think that was probably like the most, as far as like graphic, that was probably the most. I think.
Well, I was just looking at
some kind of dismemberment involved. Yeah. What were you
saying? Yeah. That's the kills are generally.
Oh, they took off a finger too. They took off Alicia Cuthbert's finger.
Yeah, just like poking out through the grate. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's just like I think for the most part, like the Dark Castle movies deliver on the kill front. This one might be a little underwhelming in that regard, but I'm just looking at Letterboxd, and both House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts have a average 2.7. House of Wax has 2.9, and then Ghost Ship has 2.4. So I mean, like, none of these movies are really highly regarded by people, and this Ghost Ship is actually not a remake. There is a movie called Ghost Ship from like forever ago. It has no resemblance to this at all. And then there's also the key art for a movie called Death Ship, I believe is the title, from 1980. Very closely resembles the key art for Ghost Ship from 2002.
Is that the one that's also called Shockwaves? The one that has Peter Cushing in it? Or am I thinking of a different one?
I don't believe that it is that one. Okay. I can look at it right here. I don't think that,
because that's the one where there's like a ship that was lost from World War II and has like Nazi zombies on it, and I think,
I mean, that already sounds more interesting than but yeah, the Peter Cushing is not in...
I just heard a description. I've heard, I've like seen the art, the Wikipedia or whatever on it.
Yeah, Peter Cushing is not in Death Ship. It just has a similar design of like the bow of the ship with like sort of like the skull face in it. Mm-hmm. Which is great, like key art.
Blue-green haze. Maybe.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's just another movie that the key art is better than the contents within, in my opinion. But yeah, this was sort of like a turn for the company, because I think initially what had happened is that they collaborated with William Castle's daughter on House on Haunted Hill, and she was not happy with what had happened. So then they moved on to 13 Ghosts without her. Oh, hush you. And I don't know, maybe it was like there was something legally they weren't allowed to remake any more of his movies, and that's why we kind of went in this direction. I have no idea. I couldn't find anything specifically. It might have just been a creative choice. So yeah, hence Ghost Ship. And then they wouldn't go back to remakes until House of Wax, which is not really a remake, as we discussed on that episode. Yeah.
It's kind of like 13 Ghosts, where it has very little to do with the original.
It's such a shame that 13 Ghosts wasn't the redemption arc for Dark Castle films, because I enjoyed that movie. And I mean, again, that's not a direct remake, like where it exactly mirrors like what was made before. It's just kind of like made in contemporary times. Like a lot of it was recontextualized and revised, and I liked all of the changes.
Edward, what do you mean by redemption arc, though?
I mean, like, no, I know, just in the eyes of like William Castle's daughter, like it should have been, in her eyes, she should have been able to say, you know what, you're not making like my father's movies, you're doing your own thing. I can see what you're doing now. You know, here, make another one.
I mean, I think that if she had a problem with House on Haunted Hill, it might not be the same issues that you had with it, because, you know, you famously have said that is not a good movie. I'm of the opinion that it is great, and I love
feel a kinship with her.
And I think that in response to what you were saying, Jason, like 13 Ghosts, it does its own thing, but it still has the bones of like what the story is, of just like the family inheriting the house and all that. It's more of like artistically is where it kind of does what it does. And, you know, I always said that like I like remakes that, you know, take a concept that is like really good but just might not have the best execution. And the original 13 Ghosts was nothing special.
Right.
So it's just, you know, in terms of like what they were doing with the remakes was top notch as far as I'm concerned. And this was just sort of like, I think, where they were kind of more getting into the idea of like, we can just make any horror movie.
I mean, so when you compare to like the artistic design of 13 Ghosts and all the different elements, you know, not just the house, but then each of the ghosts and you know, and how much creativity and imagination was in that. Yeah, I mean, compared to that, Ghost Ship was a huge step down.
Well, before we get into all of that, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping. So if you're new to the Cherry Picker, or if you've been watching/listening for a while and you want to give a little bit back, you can check us out on Patreon under my name, Zack Cherry, ZACKCHERRY. And if you're supporting at any tier, you'll get early access to all of our episodes. If you're supporting at the Freddy Krueger tier, $5 a month, you'll get our bonus episode, The Cherry Picker After Dark, which runs every month. This month, we're going to be chatting about Scream 7, which, you know, we haven't talked about Scream in a while, so very exciting. What is with this shrug, Edward? What is with this shrug?
I mean, we'll see what we have to say, you know. That's it's largely speculation at this particular point.
Well, that's what it is. But we talk about what speculation, but we talk about what we want to see. We talk about what we like from the franchise and what we want to see moving forward. This is a shrug. We like to bicker here, and if you want to see even more bickering, well, one of us invites it, but if you want to see more of it, there's hours of Cherry Picker After Dark, and we'd love for you to come check it out. So, having said that, I do want to thank several of our Patreon supporters. So at the Michael Myers tier, thank you to Kyle Beard, Maxime Rivest, Ali Hamouche, Shane Allingham, Tim McKay, Stephanie Starbright, Horror Slut 95, Bruce the Genetic Jackhammer Rando, Josh Carr, Michael Boswell, and then Ghostface supporters. Thank you to Eric Champney, Sam Levy, Daniel Saturn, Baby Ghoul, Garrison Nichols, and Craig Lynn. And also thank you to Jason for editing
very welcome.
the podcast. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
Edward, do you have a premise that you want to grace us with?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right. When a salvage crew makes a long-lost discovery, drifting lifeless across a remote region of the Bering Sea, they soon suspect that its long-dead inhabitants may still be on board this ghost ship.
Where can people find this movie?
Well, in 2020, Scream Factory dropped a collector's edition with a director's commentary track, 3 new featurettes, in addition to 5 archival featurettes. My God, you have it. And it's also, if that's not your cup of tea and you just want to dip in, it's available for individual streaming rental on YouTube Prime or Apple TV Plus, which is where I rented it, hopefully for the last time. I didn't really share. I didn't really disclose as we opened, but I don't really care for this movie either. I think I did have more of a nuanced take on it because we covered this on the old pod, right?
We
Zack?
did, yeah.
Okay, because I remember being very bored and very disgruntled and having basically nothing positive to say. I think I was a little bit more involved this time just because I've had a movie deficiency of late. I haven't been watching a lot of movies, so when I turned it on, I was just kind of like, oh, I get to watch a movie. And the opening was enticing, not just like the opening sequence, but like the old Warner's logo, which actually didn't resemble it at any stage that I could recognize it, so it's almost like they recreated their own Warner's era logo. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a novice, but... and then even I had forgotten that the sweeping melodies of the, I almost said the overture, but of the, the opening titles and Ghost Ship, like put in this kind of ribbony cursive and everything like that. And I was enchanted. I was like,
it's
I
like
don't remember any of this.
You're like about to see a Disney movie. Yeah.
I think it's probably the best part of the production design is like not just the opening in terms of the kill, but just like all of this of sort of like setting it up like an old timey Warner Brothers movie. And I have to say, like the costume design and just like makeup and all that like looks great. Like it looks like because this is supposed to be 40 years earlier, so I guess like 1962 is the idea. But yeah, I that was kind of a way in for me. That was sort of like, okay, they're committing themselves to this style, and then of course, after the opening, we go directly to the rest of the movie, which doesn't really have a unique signature in terms of just like atmosphere or style or anything. It's just it's very basic. And what's upsetting about that is like I think this was like an expensive movie for them to make. Like it was $20 million, and it doesn't look all that impressive. I think that their biggest sort of accomplishment, or at least like when I listen to the or watch the features, is sort of like the way that they got the water reflection effect throughout everything, and like really that was the only characteristic that made it pop out, because everything else it looked rather dull.
I took issue with the resolution, which I think I took issue with before, but there's something about the clarity and with the flashback, and also with the present day, the 2002 footage, and the way it all kind of interwove with each other. Because I do kind of agree that the design teams, I think, did a really, really good job. I appreciated the costumes. I appreciated the general production design, like the scenic design and all of the set dressing that was done. The problem that I had with it was, I think, lighting, resolution, and cinematography, because I just wish that what we did see, there was more of a fine grain to, both for like kind of like a more authentic visual feel in the 1960s flashback, and also like just for a grittier world that we were that we started at with this, kind of blue collar crew, and then we moved into once we got onto the ship. I just felt like everything was kind of like. I almost wonder if this movie had been made 3 or 5 years later, when remake, gritty, dark, whatever, was in full swing. If it would have benefited the look of the movie for me, just in terms of something that suits the tone that it seems like they're going for, a harsher world, a more unforgiving kind of past. Does that all make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely, because everything was very uniform in a way, and they could have changed it as we kind of went through environments or times.
Mm-hmm. And to the point where, even as they were moving through the ship, inhabiting the spaces, I thought a lot of it looked really, really well put together, a lot of attention to detail. But the way it was lit and the way it was shot, it made me feel as though, this looks like a really, really good maze event, like a really, really good immersive experience, like walk through the ghost ship maze. And
it looked like it would have been a good video game. Like if this was video games of that came out there, I'd be okay, like a Resident Evil type of thing. It's kind of
there actually is a video game that came out the last decade. The people that did or is it Until Dawn? They did Man of Medan, and that is where a group of people find an old ghost ship from I think World War I or something like that. But yeah, it's very, very similar with the with the set and everything like that. The rusted looking, the set design, scenic elements.
Cool. Yeah, I also felt like maybe. I'm surprised that it was a $20 million budget, because one of my notes as we were moving through, because we spent a lot of time just moving through this ship, falling through the slats and everything, going, don't trap me, don't trap me, oh dear God, I don't even know who these people are. I don't, I'm not connected to any of them the way they were introduced. The only thing I know about them when we get introduced to this crew is that Gabriel Byrne's in charge, kind of, and that in that kind of stern taskmaster, damn it, what's her name? Epps. Damn it, Epps. Yeah. Juliana Margulies is kind of the wild card, the one who's going to put it all on the line. And we learned this in the first 30 seconds of meeting her. Mm-hmm. She's going to go against the rules, but she's going to succeed anyway, and everybody's going to high five her. And that's all we know.
And none of that really comes back into play in terms of her character later on. It's not
she without hesitation jumps in after Greer and Munder after the explosion of the ships. I mean, maybe in that sense she's kind of fearless about that. That's as that's the only closest I can think of.
All it tells us is
any kind of a payoff of that.
All that tells us at the beginning is that she's willing to put everyone's lives at risk, because that's the thing. They're towing this thing that's sinking. So it's the sentiment, at least on what's the Gabriel Byrne's character name?
Murphy.
Yeah. Murphy, so Murphy is just sort of okay, that's we gotta get rid of this because it's gonna take us down with it. And she's just we can't throw away the last 3 months. So she dives in and what are they gonna do? It's either okay, I guess we all go down together, or we leave you to die on your own, sort of thing. So so she's kind of reckless. That's what that is telling me. But she gets results, and great. But we don't really that whole kind of establishing of those characters is so rushed, because we're suddenly right back on land, and they're at the bar, and they're just sitting around the table throwing wads of cash on the table in this bar. And this is the thing, this is where I'm kind of taken out of it, because there's so much exposition, there's so much talking. Most of what we learn about these characters is just them having conversations, and I can't hear anything in this movie. It's all of the dialogue is just.
I put the subtitles on.
Yeah,
same.
It's we're not finding out anything in terms of maybe there's a history there, but it's just we're so disconnected from the dialogue that congratulations to anyone who could follow any of it. And it's just, speaking of the cast, so apparently they signed on to the movie under the original script, the Chimera script. So everyone was kind of disappointed after, the ink was dry and this is the movie they thought they were doing. And then it's just
and it shows.
No, we're doing Ghost Shed. Yeah. So nobody really wanted to be there, it seems. Because you have a lot of, like Gabriel Byrne is just like, this doesn't seem like something that he would necessarily want to be a part of. Like, this is kind of like, beneath him. Like, I think about like an actor similar to him, like that, like a Jeffrey Rush in House on Haunted Hill. But Jeffrey really wanted to play that part. Like, that was like something that he didn't have to be in the movie, and it was kind of like against type for him, but he wanted to do it. And here it's just like nothing about that character specifically of like Murphy. It's just like anything in the material being like an actor of Gabriel Byrne's status would be like, yeah, him. I want to play that role.
Yeah.
Well, he did do a sitcom right around that time.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That didn't even last a season. It was like him and his old Irish father, and he had a son, like, that was like young. And the only thing I remember, one part I remember of one episode was where the father takes his little kid with him to the liquor store or something like that, and Gabriel Byrne's like all pissed off, and he says, "I was taking you back to the pub when you were 5 years old," and he goes, "Oh yes, the Irish Head Start program."
What was the show called?
Oh God, I can't remember what it was called.
Let's see if I can find it on his. It was around
Yeah.
2002.
Yeah, it was around then. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm pretty
Madigan
sure it was
Man?
after. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That sounds-
I think that's it. It was after
12 episodes.
It was. Yeah, it was. I know it was after Usual Suspects. I think it was around this time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, so he
Amazing.
clearly...
so this was his slumming period, I guess.
Yeah, there's it was a paycheck. There's not much to do. That all of a sudden you're handed a new script that isn't the thing that you signed on for, and you're like, oh Jesus. And I think I felt the same way about Juliana Margulies in my initial viewings of this movie. This time around, I think I'm willing to cut her a little bit more slack because for kind of like the aforementioned reasons with like Gabriel Byrne, there's no real reason to cast her in this role because there's not much depth to it. Like I think she actually is doing her best. I think before I used to have a kind of image of her just walking through it, and there are some very flat line deliveries that actually made me enjoy the ride a little bit more. But
You really are a fucking ghost. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. And even just like what were the other ones? Oh God, you really are a fucking ghost. And then no, he was drunk. He didn't know what he was doing. Oh, found it. Belonged to this little girl. And then when she sees Greer's corpse, oh my God. I started writing them down. Now I realized, oh my God, these are all epsilons.
It's like the Ali Larder in House on Haunted Hill. Like, they're just like, is she dead? I don't know.
The script didn't do her any favors.
Yeah. Exactly.
I think, and especially since she was the main character carrying the movie, I think, I agree that for what the script was, the characterization in the script, because like you said, I mean, the whole her being reckless thing does not come into play at all. It's really Murphy that ends up being the reckless one. The rest of the thing, he's the one that says no, no Coast Guard, no, so. Yeah, the whole her being reckless doesn't set up anything. The characterizations that we get of him being the cautious one and her being the reckless one are completely opposite of the rest of the movie. So it's, I mean, yeah, for her, the writing of that character, I thought she did fairly well with it.
There's a
it's
lot
not
of
even
stuff that
introduced
just
as,
comes
like,
out
a
of
huge
nowhere,
turn,
though, because like at the end, like this Dodge character who I feel like we don't know anything about him other than the fact that he's sort of like a goofball with Munder. And then all of a sudden at the end, it's like apparently he's in love with.
That
X.
came out of nowhere.
And this whole bit of just like you're just gonna do what she says all the time, like. It felt a little forced. Like maybe that was like a remnant of the Chimera script that they're just like, oh, I like that. Let's keep it here completely out of context.
It's also got disorganization for me in terms of the order. Like, I mean, I think you already mentioned, Zack, that like once we meet the crew, like it's kind of hard to follow the conversation. I literally had to run the movie back because I think about 5 minutes had gone by of them just kind of deliberating over whether they were going to make this decision or not to go with Jack, and I just zoned out. and before I knew it, they were all on the boat. And I'm like, wait, I don't remember how they got on the boat or why. Let me run this back and really watch this movie. And I did, and nothing was of any consequence. There was just a lot of jibber jabber about just kind of like, well, we kind of, well, if we don't, I mean, I guess it would make sense if you were one of the people at the table, like, but as far as an audience member, there's nothing like dramatically compelling. There's no real high stakes to play in. There's not even like a real tight kind of like relationship dynamic that I can key into. I don't get to know any of these people any better than I did like at the beginning of the scene.
Especially when you like compare that to something like Alien, how you've got like those characters sitting at this round table and just sort of discussing the stakes of just like whether they don't follow the like emergency broadcast or recording or whatever it is, and just like what they might stand to lose here. So it just felt like it was just very arbitrary. They're just kind of like, I guess the movie's got a movie, so let's just go along with it. And, I mean, that scene more like if anyone was sort of highlighted, or I just got a sense of any character, it was Jack Ferryman. Because the whole thing was sort of like, I want 20%, and they're like, nah, and he's like, we'll do it for 10. And he's like, okay, but I come with you. Like that revealed more about his character than any of them. And like, considering that this is the crew, these are the ones that we're supposed to like, or at least know, like they kind of failed us there.
I'm glad you brought up Alien, because I thought about Alien a lot during this movie, just in terms of like, I wish that the script had cribbed off Alien a little bit more, or even in the organization of it. Like, because even the way once we get onto the boat and everything, there's a scattered way that it seems like they seem to be operating. Like, we get Jack Ferryman inquiring about the nature of, I don't even remember who. It was Epps and somebody. I can't remember if it was Murphy or Dodge. It was Murphy? Okay. He wants to know
what
if
the relationship is,
Yeah, if there's anything going on between the two of them. But it's happening simultaneously while they're all taking in the setting for like, the lion's share of the movie. And I just kind of, it made me miss actually beyond Alien. It made me miss even just Steven Spielberg, because if any filmmaker knows how to just kind of like establish a terrain that you're going to occupy as an audience and as characters in a movie, it's Spielberg. And with Ridley Scott, same thing with Alien. I thought about all those establishing shots of the Nostromo, and because at one point I did wish, while they were wandering around the ship, I did wish that we'd gotten to see a little bit more of the before of the ship. And now that I know they had $20 million, I'm like, well, give me some ship. Give me a nice staircase shot so I can see what it looks when it's uninhabited and run down and flooded and rusty like that, so I can feel a little bit more of that haunting. So as an audience member, I'm a little bit more clued into the risk that they're running, like being on this hallowed ground, as it were, this haunted atmosphere. But I don't get any of that. But then, Ridley Scott didn't do that for Alien. He just showed us the Nostromo, and that's tense as fuck. So is there an answer? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like, I looked it up. It's not their most expensive. It's actually half the price of most of their other ones, because 13 Ghosts had a $40 million budget. So, that was cut in half here. And I feel like most of that, just like looking at the movie, probably went into the CGI. Because there's quite a bit of it here. And it just like, it really goes to show like the difference. Because like there's obviously CGI in 13 Ghosts, but like a lot of that is practical effects and set design and makeup. I think that there's a lot that they could have done here, like even with like miniatures, and still like use some like digital effects to make
the boat was a miniature.
Oh,
okay.
The boat was a miniature, and the behind the scenes. So they built one model, but they only had the budget to build one model. Mm-hmm. So what they did was they built like the starboard side brand as pristine new, and then the port side as the decayed ship, so that they could use the same model for both.
Wow.
But it was a model. The opening kill was a lot of practical effects. They showed like some people with like the dummies and everything like that that they used. Like I think like that the last of the ship going down. I mean that's definitely all CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love the joke about the Titanic. That was another thing. there are all these moments where I felt like the movie was indicating, like, okay, so this is how you're supposed to feel about this. And I was like, well, you could just make me feel this. Like when they're talking about the hull being breached and how they need to fix it and everything like that. And Jack's just kind of like, well, how did that happen? Do you think they hit an iceberg or something? And everyone's like, no, newbie. Okay. Obviously it wasn't an iceberg. You know nothing about ships. Anything could have done that. And I'm just like, am I supposed to feel some sense of camaraderie with this crew?
Okay, so I have a question then.
They're gatekeeping icebergs.
So I thought that the ship sinking was a result of, and because I was confused and I just sort of like put this together and was just like, oh, I guess that's what it is. I thought the ship was sinking as a result of them crashing into it when they got there, because like I was thinking like, how is it like so convenient that they've arrived at this ship that's been adrift for 40 years and this is like they just found out that it has 3 days.
Well, that's why he got them there, because they're a salvage crew.
Yeah.
He needed them to fix the ship.
But he only just discovered it like recently.
No, he's been there all along. He's like the demon or whatever.
Oh, okay, but in terms of like the way that he presented himself was
the way he
that.
presented
Okay.
it. Yes.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, there was that point where Munder.
Munder. I couldn't remember his name either. I'm like Mulder, Moner.
I can't remember any of their names, but anyway, Carl Urban, who I actually do think turned in probably the best performance in the entire movie, because everybody else seemed to be playing like, even if they were relatively invested, they fluctuated anywhere between like I'd say a 6 or an 8, except for like when Juliana kind of gets to lose it and scream and everything like that. I'm like, okay, she earned her pay that day, but Carl Urban is like at a 10 for me the entire time, just kind of going, what? I appreciated the level of enthusiasm that he seemed to be bringing to it, and it didn't stand out either. It didn't feel like he was hamming it up. But anyway, he's got one point where he's just going over all of these plans about how they are going to fix the breach and get this hole closed up and everything like that. And I started to get lost again, and it's not Carl Urban's fault, but Jack is sitting there and just asks, and what does that all mean? And I totally identified with that character, who I feel like I'm not supposed to. I feel like I'm supposed to be like rolling my eyes with the rest of the crew at this guy who just doesn't get it, who's probably like Mr. Moneybags, Mr. White Collar, Mr. like, I work with maps or something. I don't even know who he is, but there were a few moments like that in this movie where I just felt kind of like alienated by the people. I couldn't tell. I kept thinking about other movies where I'm just kind of like, there are times where I don't know, but where it actually kind of feeds the tension. Like I think about the way Kubrick handled The Shining. We're in a haunted question mark, like kind of atmosphere, and like what's real and what isn't, and the not knowing actually only kind of like feeds, those are the breadcrumbs that are making me follow this movie wherever it's going to take me. And with this one, I found myself wondering a lot of the time, like, okay, so are they turning on each other because that's what the ship does? Is it like it possesses them with a kind of like animalistic, primal, like, okay, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, and nobody's listening to each other anymore, and that's how all these people killed each other? Because I had forgotten everything about the final sequence where we revealed kind of the domino effect of murder that was motivated by greed. But even that, I'm like, okay, so was the greed just man-made? It's just the way it went down that particular night, and now the ship is cursed? Or is that just the way these people happen to be? This family that we've been introduced to isn't as strong as they thought they were, and now they're punching each other and screaming at each other and throwing each other down aquariums.
I think I feel like there should have been more of that. More of them turning on one another, because the gold made the entire crew go batshit and kill everybody on the ship.
Yeah.
And like there should have at least been one character that tried to like stab the rest in the back and like get away on his own, or save his own skin or something like that. And I think that's the problem with after the reveal is you have these two characters, you have Munder and Dodge, and the way they like one of them or both of them, would have been interesting if they had a different started going on their own agenda. Like if they were actually kind of getting lured by ferrymen or something like that, instead like the whole thing where with him, you're gonna do everything she tells you, you're really in love with her, all that, which was out of nowhere and stupid. If he'd been kind of going around to every one of them, like you only really see him with Epps. If he'd kind of been with all of them at one time or another and kind of like just whispering a little bit, or not whispering, like, but just kind of like, getting
just
him to do something that might be, planting this, planting the seeds, and then at the end you could have had, more than just ferryman. You could have, because
there could have been like an Owen
like
Wilson
a secondary
betrayal twist,
ancillary antagonist. Yeah.
I feel like the characterization of like everyone is pretty weak here, because even like Edward, you mentioning Ferryman's introduction, he's not really, like if he's supposed to be this like white collar moneybags guy, he's not really presented as that. Like he just seems like, this is just like average Joe Schmo who's like coming along and like asking all these questions. And I just mentioned Anaconda, just like with Owen Wilson, like because there was a character who was sort of like out of his element there, the guy who was like the documentarian. There could have just been like more nuance with these characters that just like, you're like, oh, that's that guy. And the only reason that like Ferryman stands out to me is because he's played by Desmond Harrington, who would later go on to be in Wrong Turn, and then I guess more famously he played Quinn on Dexter. But it's just in terms of everything here, like, Jason, you mentioned like most of his interactions were with Epps, and it also seemed like most of Epps's interactions with anyone was with Ferryman, which seemed weird because it's like, here's this what's supposed to be this tight-knit family, and she's like confiding in him more than anyone, and there's like, for no reason, like there's nothing that's presented as like, you're the person that I trust, like there's anything like some sort of essence about him that seems warm or trustworthy or whatever, that she wants to go and like, because she sees the ghost of the little girl, and she doesn't tell anyone except for
him.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing is, nothing comes of it. Just kind of like at the beginning, the same thing with the beginning, where, they establish her as being reckless, but then she's really not. There's nothing comes. There's no payoff to the fact that she and Ferryman were. The Ferryman was the one she was talking to this whole time, instead of, and she was the one he was talking to. Whereas like, what I was just saying, if it had been somebody else that he was talking to, and then they kind of end up going rogue, that would have been like the setup for it. But the fact that it could have been anyone that she was talking to, it really didn't matter as far as that it was him. And his whole purpose his whole being there is kind of weird too, because he has the power to go to the ship and back, because so he doesn't really need to be with them. He could get to the ship however. I mean, he's linked to the ship somehow. He could get there. He got back to Alaska or wherever they were. So he could also be, I mean, I don't think it would have been that big of a deal if they just, when you realize, if he was not present after the beginning in the bar, and and then you have the real reveal of him at the end, and then the picture. I mean, I think, especially if they showed like a flashback, because they did show a couple flashbacks of her with the reveal of him, all this interactions with him. Mm-hmm. I think it might have been interesting if they just left him out, because you kind of think like, oh, maybe he's there to be the audience POV character, but just because he's like, like you said, the newbie. But then, I mean, with what his arc ends up being, it kind of it doesn't go anywhere. Doesn't seem to.
I wonder what the rules.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, just that. Just to piggyback on like what you're talking about in terms of the exchange between her disclosure about seeing the little girl with him. In comes again out of nowhere, like the sweeping melody of the score. It's all really overtly sentimental and moving while she's talking about seeing this ghost girl who she has no connection to, and we're not led to believe that she really does, or does she? And then we find out no, she doesn't. But it seems like the music would have you believe that she's sharing something really, really deep and close and personal about this thing that she saw. But there's no backstory. There's no like, I saw a ghost girl once, or, you know, or anything like that.
Yeah.
Or I was left alone as a little girl somewhere. So when I see an image of a little girl left alone somewhere, it triggers me. Like, there's none of that. All he does is say back to her, like, you know, I used to see things once, but you know what? I'm good. And she's like, and then they just go part ways. Again, we reach the end of the scene and nothing has been achieved. Absolutely. We don't know anything more than we did, except that she told someone who's not a member of her family that she saw a ghost and that she doesn't know what to do with it. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what most of the movie is. It's just scenes that don't really matter, that just kind of like fill up the runtime. And I was going to say, like, just like speaking of like the rules of like Ferriman and like how he's supposed, because he presents it at the end like he's like an employee and he has to you know, meet a quota and whatever, and it's just like, so he can always transport to the boat magically or supernaturally or whatever, but I guess he can't take the gold with him or whatever. It's just like all of these like really arbitrary rules that have been like created within the screenplay to make sure that the movie happens exactly as the way that they need it to happen. Because it's not like he's like incorporeal where he can't like, because that would have been an interesting thing if like the whole time he's just sort of there and nobody's like touching him or interacting with him in a way that you know, makes it seem like he is, because there's you know, lots of movies that do that too, and you're like, oh, they were a ghost all along or something like that.
And again, that would also be, you know, the thing about, you know, what I was saying about the ending. Yeah, I mean that he ends up being like this boss fight where she's, you know, she stabs him at one point, but he doesn't feel, he gets shot, or no, he gets shot and just, you know, it doesn't do anything, but then she stabs him and he's like screaming in pain. Yeah. You know, so the rules from him aren't consistent, but then at the same time, like if you had somebody, like if he was just a ghost, it would make more sense if he was a ghost that could not interact with anything, because that would explain why he needs other people to do that, you know, to fix the ship and stuff like that. If he has too much power, then it's like, okay, why didn't you just do this shit yourself, you know?
Right, instead of some halfway corporeal entity.
Right. Yeah.
Shapeshifter.
And then if they'd had
shapeshifter at the end.
And then if they'd had like another, you know, like I said, like somebody, he'd be using other crewmen against you know, members of the crew against her, and then and have that be the the physical threat, you know, for the climax.
Yeah. Well, it's reminding me of like Buffy season 7, where like the first evil was the big bad, because that's the thing. It did not have physical form and just took the form like shape-shifting into other people, and like they would never touch anyone, and that's like how you knew that like they were the first evil. But like that's what the first evil did. It just like got in people's ears and like turned them against each other. So it just seems like, you know, and that came out around the same time, like 2002, like. It was right there. They could, if they were gonna rip something off, like why not rip off Buffy?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I also have to wonder.
And they, like you're saying, I mean, the rules for him, and you know, they really wrote it very inconsistently. I mean, I think they, like they could have done like, you know, some, you know, just taking a, you know, the pass at the script, because yeah, I mean, I could see like the whole thing if it's like. If it's kind of like a cabin in the woods thing where they need to damn themselves, and you know, and he can't intervene. You know, he can only kind of like, but then he's the one majorly pushing them forward to get the gold and everything like that. He's the one that discovers it. He's the one that, oh, look at this. Hey, we're going to be rich, you know? Instead of just, it would seem like it would just be a thing where there's a short story or something like that. I remember like where like 3 brothers and they find like gold or something like that under this tree. And then, you know, and they all end up killing each other, murdering each other for the gold. Like one of them, like somebody poisons both the other two, and then somebody stabs him, and then like somebody gets, you know, drinks the poison at the end and dies. But the whole thing is they've basically found death under the tree, and that was like the implication is that, you know, like death, the Grim Reaper, you know, he came for him. That's how he killed them. He used this gold to kill them. So it would be, it's kind of like what they seemed like they were going to with the gold, but then again, he really, instead of just letting them find it, letting them get greedy, letting them make these plans, he was kind of always pushing them. So it's kind of like, okay, well, you're kind of involving yourself a lot in damning these souls, and when they show the flashback, he actually kills the last one himself. So yeah, I mean, I think you just could be a little more consistent with how the lore of the whole thing.
He should have been like Jeff Probst on Survivor. You just you give them the rules and let them play whatever way that they're gonna play, and they're gonna betray and backstab everyone. But yeah, it's I don't even think that like a rewrite or another pass of the script would have been necessary. I think that they should have just never tampered with what the original script was in the first place, because it sounds like whatever that story was would have been quite compelling. It just probably wasn't, within what Dark Castle was used to at that point. Because I mean, like coming from House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts, like they're looking for like bisected bodies and like and splatter and gore and lots of blood, and it didn't sound like that was really what it was. It was a very psychological thing of people, getting inside their heads and turning on one another. That I think that maybe what would have just been better if like Dark Castle hadn't taken this script in the first place and it had gone to a different studio, that they could do it the way that it should have been. So,
I also have to wonder if there's any course that this movie could have at a certain point. I did wonder. I felt like the notes that I was saying about like, well, maybe this would make it better. And then they would do something kind of along those lines. I'd be like, yeah, but not like that. Like, for instance, the little girl ghost, it bothered me. I actually started to really kind of see the value in like things like The Ring with Samara, like the fact that she looks different than her surroundings. And there's a, logistical reason for that. She's coming out of a television and all that. But, just because this little girl didn't look any different than any other cast member, she looked like she was standing in the exact same environment, under the same light source, moving at the same frame rate. There was no real reason for them to be afraid of her or to even believe she was a ghost, aside from the fact that there's no reason a little girl should have survived on that ship. But then at one point when she was seated in a room, I think it's when it
was in her cabin.
Yeah, it's the same scene where Epps tries to hand her the locket and it goes through her hand and everything. And all of a sudden she is lit differently, but the problem is I can see the lighting source coming through like a tiny eye light through a window or something like that. It almost looks like a tiny little, like, what do you call them? The nautical windows or something like that. It looks like a bit like a small one, like a really small one. It's just kind of like an eye of light, like shining only on her. And I'm like, well, don't show me that. Like I was all ready to write a positive note of like, oh, now she looks different, but it's because she's literally being lit different in the scene, and when she disappears, the light is still there. It was kind
and
of
also when they show the captain, he's like a completely different type of ghost as far as he's the actual, the typical
pale
and transparent and
have, like, blood trickling down somewhere too, like his. Didn't he have blood?
Anyway, it was
in the beginning. I can't remember if the ghost did. I don't think
Edward. It was a good thing to bring up because like I didn't think of it like to like at the time, but just like the moment where the little girl kind of comes, like it's the first time I think she says anything, when she comes like running down before like the explosion or whatever, because she's just like, no, don't do this, and it's just like there was nothing about it that felt like this was a ghost. Like it just seemed like she was just a girl on the ship running towards her, and like the only thing that was like distinct about her was the makeup, but everything about it, like it just makes me think of House on Haunted Hill and how like with the ghosts they had them moving backwards and then like would speed up the frame rate and do all that weird shit just to give it a very unnatural look. And this is just sort of like everything is so basic and blasé that there is no distinction of like what is real and what is supernatural, just in terms of like the way it's shot.
I wonder if I can't remember if it was right before this, the first Resident Evil movie had the ghost, the hologram girl That was the
right.
Red Queen. Yeah, you're all going to die down here.
She was English too, yeah.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that's why they didn't. I don't know how long ago. I'm pretty sure it was before Ghost Ship, but I'm wondering if that's the reason why they didn't go like like kind of like transparent, more of a ghostly effect with her.
I mean, wasn't she clearly like a computer program in that though? Like
yeah. Oh yeah.
a
She was.
hologram?
Yeah. I'm just wondering because English speaking yeah.
Yeah, both movies came out in 2002. I mean, this came out in October.
Okay, so one
that
wouldn't
came
come out
in,
before the other one.
in
Okay.
March. So I mean, maybe that was a thing, but I don't know that much
And that's something
what they were doing.
it could be. Because it could be something they were planning on doing in post production, and then
and then they ran out of money. Yeah, it just seems like there was just a lot of like not caring.
They either ran out of money, they ran out of time, or they ran out of fucks in the last like 20 minutes of the movie.
I liked the ghost girl, like just like as the character of what she.
I thought she did a really good job.
That actress Emily Browning, she's been in a few horror movies. She was
genre
in
movies. Yep.
The Uninvited. That came out in 2009, which actually is like really good. I hadn't seen it until just a few years ago, but I quite liked it. She was also in I guess she played the younger version of Emma Caulfield's character in Darkness Falls. And then she was also in Sucker Punch, which I don't know.
She was the main character in Sucker Punch. She was Baby Doll, and she actually did some of the singing too. I think she did the vocals on the cover of Sweet Dreams. That's in the beginning, the scene where the stepfather or whatever is kills the mother and is dragging her and the sister away. And I think a couple of the other pieces that were in that music that were in that movie. And then she was in recently, I think she was in the American Gods miniseries. She played the main character's wife.
Nice.
Well, all I know is that she was like
Sucker Punch.
She was spelling out the little letters on the whatever that thing is, which basically just echoed my sentiments of the movie. It was just like, I'm so bored.
I'm so bored.
Yeah, I'm so bored. Yeah.
I did love the introduction of that though, because like in the flashback, I felt like I just assume he's a gay waiter, but I just love the fact that like, because wasn't he the one who was like helping her adjust the letters and just kind of gave her a look like, oh sister, I feel it too, and she was like, oh my god, you totally do, and they snapped or high fived or something, but and then it made me sad because I actually, again, in the opening sequence, I was like, oh, there's something to care about. I'm watching her actually form a bond with an adult who's like, girl, I see you, and then it made me really sad because that was another question because I didn't remember the domino murders and everything like that towards the end, where the snake is eating its own tail and this person begat this person and whatnot. But
very Joker Dark Knight.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
But I didn't
Carousel
remember that
betrayal. Yeah.
Well, that we watched that character, the gay waiter, basically like getting murdered in front of her, and I'm like, oh no, I liked that guy. And also just the sense that like it answered a huge question that I had after that flashback, which I don't know, it kept me hooked into the movie. I wondered after that Cable, kind of like bisected everybody, almost everybody. I was like, so wait, was everyone on that entire giant ship like on the same thing?
Just on this
no,
one
of
deck,
course not. Yeah, I'm glad that I got that question answered. I'm like, oh, okay, now the bullet holes make sense in that bloody pool and all of that. Oh, okay, now I don't think I was ever invested enough in this movie to actually digest that information. So I was grateful for that.
Do we think that because I don't remember if they showed who pulled the lever in the flashback, but
no.
Do we think that, just piggybacking off of what you said earlier, Jason, was that ferryman whose hand we see pulling the thing? Because it's like they kind of set it up in a way, it's just like, we're gonna find out who's behind this later on, rather than it just being like a random like crew member.
I always thought it was, and I only know from looking up IMDb, the purser, the one that's kind of like bringing the champagne around, because he just looks evil. When they first show him, okay, yeah, that's the bad guy right there. So that's why I always figured it was him, and also he was the one that he was kind of like the first snakehead that gets eaten by the other snake, because they do him in. He's the one that massacres everybody with machine gun in the pool, and then the guy at the end that the singer shoots in the head, he stabs him, and that goes by really quick. Like, you don't even like like the first time watching it, you probably I didn't even notice that happened, and I was like, whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah, well, because the thing is, it's just like everything that's happening in the present time isn't reflecting what happened in the past, just in terms of this betrayal, or this series of betrayals. So yeah, like I remember first watching that flashback and just feeling like, what is going on? Because it's like it's just
like
a bunch of random shit that's happening, and it's not really like, until you watch the movie again, at least for me, because it's like nothing is really laid out in a way that is within context or makes sense, unless you're like, really keyed into every line of dialogue that is being spoken in the movie, which is very hard to do with something like this, where every scene looks and feels the same, and there's not much purpose moving the story forward. So yeah, like even the ending, like the final shot where she's being loaded into the ambulance, and we just see like the crew, they're loading the gold onto like I'm so confused about that, because first I'm looking at them and I'm just like, oh, is that the crew, like her crew? Because like some of them looked a little. No, yeah, I saw, but like the one guy with like the blonde hair at the end, it's just oh, is that Dodge or something? And then like here comes Ferryman following after, but it's just like it didn't make sense. It's like, how is the gold gotten, and what are they now loading it onto, or is this just like new gold?
Well, that's the cruise ship that picked her up, I think, that's what they're loading it onto.
But it's just like, oh, was she floating? That thing that like she was out in the middle of the ocean, was that the gold
floating? I don't know.
I mean, I didn't.
Would it float?
The thing I didn't like about that scene is Ferryman himself, because he's the one that says, if I don't do this, if I don't get this, management is going to be pissed. Yeah. But they gave him another boat right away. So, and another thing of gold right away. So I guess they weren't too pissed. I think it would have been.
They wrote him up. You get a verbal warning, a first. Yeah,
yes. He had to go into HR down in hell, and they had him sign.
Yeah, I think he pled his case. He basically said, you know what? They're going to rescue the gold. They're going to put it onto another vessel. If I can keep that vessel afloat, can we do the same agreement that we had before, where as long as I keep it floating and it keep people coming on board? And they're like, okay, fine, bring some more souls. Bring us a boatload of souls. And I did have to wonder, though, if Desmond Harrington, at what point they shot his little Scooby-Doo Ghostface reveal, like his speech that he gave to Epps, because it seemed like I thought he delivered also a relatively connected performance until he revealed who he really was. And maybe he was trying to just appear dangerous, but instead he just seemed kind of immobilized and like just dispassionate about everything. And it all of a sudden made Epps look enthusiastic with his line delivery. I just, because even I did laugh before that, though, like when he's like got his his Dodge avatar going on, and he's just like, we could have a boat together, you and me. And I'm like, oh, that's the most, what woman would ever resist that?
Just sweep me off my feet. Well,
right. And then Epps gets this incredible line where she's like, what are you talking about? Like, just totally ick, and just like, there were more important things in life than you and your stupid boat and crush on me, okay? And I was just... So, the dispassionate are there to be identified with in this movie for sure.
And that whole part, that whole thing where, he gets not Owen Wilson to shoot him, and but like he says, you shoot me, you're gonna go to hell. It's like, well, you're coming at me, it's self-defense. So how's he now marked? Like, I don't get it. Like, that's what I mean. Like, he didn't get him to do anything that was like, like greedy or anything like that. Like the stuff involving the gold. Even the crew, the salvagers, he they went to the ship. They were going to salvage the ship. They found this gold. I mean, like, what were they just supposed to do? Oh, okay, we'll just leave that here. Let's dump it in the ocean, So, like, they didn't really do anything evil. So, like, when Santos comes back and he's like, oh, now I'm on this, because of you, now I'm here forever, and I'm marked, and he has the mark on him. It's like, okay, but he didn't really do anything, He's, I mean, like.
Well, because all of the ghosts are trapped there, like including.
I mean,
they
could have said,
so
let's get this gold and give it to charity, or something like that. I mean, just touching the gold shouldn't have been enough. There should have had to be like, again, like the way the crew of the Antonio Graza got the gold was them slaughtering everybody. So there should have had to been something, and the bodies that come out of the laundry area. You kind of get the feeling that, like, okay, they probably all killed each other somehow too. So I don't know why, again, it was just, it seemed really lazy. Like some of the how they did things with, what the rationale is for, like what he's actually trying to do, if he's tempting people, he's got to do a shitty job because he just got somebody to shoot him in self-defense.
I also wonder how long the shoot was. I wonder how much time they were given between the revision of the script and then, like, and was it a completely revised finished product that everybody was handed, or were they like revising pages?
It could have been
every week, just like kind of like, oh, here's what we're shooting today, and be like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they it seems. Yeah, that would definitely explain a lot if they were kind of like revising it as they were doing it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel entirely cohesive. It's a series of, like, not even vignettes, because vignettes even kind of like have a point within them, but it just kind of feels like, well, here's a scene where two people say something in this room, and here's a scene where two people say something in this room. The only one, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's an arc with any of these characters in this movie, and the only one who even had like a kind of like a sliver of humanity that I could kind of connect to because we got to know a little bit more about him was Isaiah Washington's character, Greer. Yeah, because okay, so we find out
it was
that, like,
cliche, but at least it is an arc. Yeah,
he's got a fiance. He's got like a woman waiting for him back home who he loves dearly, and then he's being tempted by Francesca Retondini, which is the actual name of the actress, and they just named her character Francesca because they couldn't think of another Italian name. And then like he's tempted by her, and then he kind of like gets pursued by her and has kind of like the Shining bathroom moment with the lady in the tub with her, where she's beautiful, and then he blinks his eyes and all of a sudden, bleh. But he literally does die as a result of it and everything. At least with him, I didn't understand the conflict with him. I didn't understand why he was throwing fists at Mundy or Mundane, whatever his name is. Munder.
Yes. I think that tracks.
But why Greer was like, and then he's like drinking and just kind of like, God, I just got to get what's happening to me, or whatever, his little soliloquy, and then he's being tempted like, you know what, I can't cheat with a ghost,
Dead
so
girl,
off come the pants. He just falls down a shaft, an elevator shaft. I don't know what he fell down even.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think it was the elevator.
She's not even like the reveal of like, like the Shining of like the old lady until like after he falls, because she just turns around. So it would have been interesting if there was a thing like she scared him to death or something.
To back up into it. That would have been,
But it's just like, no, he just sort of like goes to embrace her, and it's just
that's
like, whoops.
true. Yeah, that would have been better.
Yeah. And I don't even think we don't even see like the result of that. Like we hear like the sound effect of him like
only when Epps
finds the body.
Like after the
after
fact.
the fact.
Well,
like about 20 minutes.
Oh my God.
I don't even think that we see Munder die. I think that he's just sort of discovered later as well, because he got killed like just by the nature of just like the whatever they were trying to fix. So and that was like, I guess, more of just like a plot device. So when Ferryman came back and as Dodge, and that was like her clue to be like, why haven't you asked about Munder? Why haven't you asked about Munder yet? We can't forget Munder.
I mean, okay, does anyone have like a strong opinion either way, as to whether the ghost that Murphy encounters is the actual ghost of Santos, or if it's just an apparition, or if it's Jack or his guilt, or who do we think that is?
I think it's the actual
actually
ghost of Santos. I think what he says makes sense as far as what the explanation is. It's just like I said. I mean, that's obviously seems to be enough to make somebody marked. Just being there and even touching the gold, it's dumb. But I do think that that was his ghost, and that's why he's pissed off now at Murphy for causing his death and making him trapped there. Yeah.
Okay. It kind of, again, it makes you think about the rules of everything, because I agree. I think that it's like the actual ghost of the guy, but just in terms of all these like trapped souls or whatever, just like, why are they there, and why would ferrymen want them to be there? Because like clearly like Santos and the little girl are just there to basically warn everyone else, because we get more of that than the actual like them turning on one another. So it's just like, it was real convenient that they had all these helpful ghosts there to guide them and steer them away from potential danger for as long as possible.
Okay.
But this, like, again, the movie's got a movie.
Yeah. And you never see any, it is true. I mean, you never see any of the other ghosts you see, other than Francesca, the captain, Katie, and then Marco Santos after he dies. You never see like any of the other ghosts, and I think that would have been interesting because and again, probably that because they were shot at completely different times. I think they might have not have even had them at that point yet.
Well, we see them at the end. Yeah.
At the end when they're floating to heaven. Yeah. Oh God.
But like, I mean, no, but I mean the murderous crew members would have been interesting to show as malevolent ghosts fucking with him the whole time. I mean, like I said, that guy just has a face like a bad guy. They did have him in the movie enough.
I think ultimately this movie, I'm glad I got to see it again. Like I said, I hope I don't see it again though, because it really just made me want to watch other movies that I felt crossed thresholds, and this movie kind of cribbed off of them, like Alien, like The Shining, like even Lost Boys with like the fucking rice into maggots. I was like, okay, that was just this has been done before. Do something, movie.
I hate that scene.
Resident Evil. What else did we talk about? All the movies. Just watch all the movies, folks. Yeah. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, it's very flavorless, very very milquetoast. I think that like this is a movie, ironically, that even though this is like Dark Castle's like first non-remake, this is a movie that could be remade. Like it's a good concept. It's just this execution was horrible. So I mean, like I said, hopefully, what's the writer's name? Mark Hanlon gets another shot at this script. If that's, I mean, I don't know if that's legally possible since Dark Castle owns the story rights to this, and it became what it was. But I mean, like this is clearly the bones of a better story are in there, and even if they were to go a more supernatural route, like the way that they did, you can even do better with that. Like there's
so I think it could have worked still. I mean, even I like the sound of the original Chimera script, but I mean, I think even going with this, making it more Dark Castle like this with this supernatural angle, I think could have worked if they had thought it all through better.
Yeah.
Well, I think
lean into it. Yeah.
The connective tissue for me, like what I would have expected, is like they're telling haunted house stories. So the twists on that is that like the haunted house is now a haunted ship. And like it's just like just based on everything we talked about, like how the ghosts weren't even like lit or filmed in a way to make them seem apparition-y or things like that, that it's just like, they didn't do much to sell this as a haunted house movie in a boat. It was just it's just kind of like, oh, we're at sea.
Yeah.
And the tagline for the movie is "See Evil."
See evil. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Someone in marketing should have been fired.
It should have been ICSEA dead people.
That would have been a good. Yeah, that would have been a better one. Yeah, because that was like, and it would have been. I mean, that would have been only a few years after Sixth Sense came out. I think that was like 1999. So yeah, that was still been very relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I also think just a little microcosmic moment for me in terms of like Juliana Margulies' performance and delivery that I actually really appreciate now. It was right after they discovered the gold, and again, the sweeping melodies come in, and they're, you know, acting all jubilant and joyful, like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, I wish I could be happy for you, but I'm no happier than I would be if I just literally like walked into a room and saw a bunch of people discover gold. I'd be like, oh yeah, I discovered gold, good for you. But and I've spent at this point over half the runtime with you guys, the characters, but then immediately after that they're talking about all the things they want to buy or do and everything like that, and all she says when they're like, what about you, Epps, what do you want to do? She's like, I just want to get off this boat. And I'm like, same. Sorry. Sorry to anybody. Sorry, Jason.
No. I mean, like I said, it's the, you know, the pacing was bad. I think that there's, you know, like I said, a lot of the scenes with her and Ferriman could have just been cut out and it wouldn't have mattered. You know, she's basically telling her what we just all saw her see. I mean, he's telling to Ferriman, well, we just saw you see that. So, you know, what else is the point of this conversation? As far as the audience goes, they could have just had more, you know, more interesting things, more fleshing out some of the crew. You know, the characters that they kind of like left as fairly two-dimensional. You know, and again, had more, you know, if you're going to do the supernatural route, you know, have some more stuff with that. You know, I mean, I like the little things, you know, the like the bullet holes and things like that, where it's kind of like, oh, what did that, you know, but you know, we didn't get any other. You know, they could have seen some of the body parts on the deck as ghostly images. They could have seen, you know, when they were in the kitchen, they could have seen they could have had the chefs.
A ghostly wire could have like
and shot
flown through them, and they would have been like, "Oh, we're okay."
Just like a ghost taut cable. I would love that.
Just flying through them. Like, what was in Freddy versus Jason when the guy like runs out on the street and Freddy tries to attack him, but he hasn't reached full power yet, and he's like, I'm okay, and then he wakes up and Jason kills him.
Not strong enough yet.
What if the ghost? What if the ship was like in and of itself like a living, breathing entity? Like, remember in like House on Haunted Hill, how Chris Kattan's character says like the house is alive. It's the house. You know, it is an entity unto itself. Like, what if like, you know, they get into the bowels of the ship and it's like pulsating organs of just like that would have been cool, you know?
Yeah, one of the things I always thought was, you know, the whole thing with what they didn't do. They have Ferriman's name being Ferryman, you know, and the boat, the Charon reference. But then they didn't really do anything with that, you know, and they just had him just be. I think they should have had him be something supernatural once he does his reveal. I mean, even if it's not CGI, even if it's just like the Wishmaster's type makeup or something like that, and just have him be something, and then they could have had, you know, him like when he reveals himself, kind of like reveal the ship as like, you know, like almost like when Freddy is showing the souls and everything like that. They could have had like everybody, you know, people hanging from chains and all over the place. There could have been a really beautiful set piece. There was an opportunity for, considering what they were making the explanation and what they were making his story and his role in this, you know, and what they were saying he was. Yeah, there should be, you know, let us see some really cool imagery of all the souls and everything like that. Yeah. And
just lean harder in any direction. They could have leaned harder into the psychological nature of the story and make it about when man turns against man, or they could have just gone like full, like, okay, let's build a haunted house on the water and just have people move into it, and they shouldn't be there. Go, you know, that would have been great. But maybe someday. I agree. I would like to see a remake of this.
Yeah, 100%. Me too.
Yeah. Well, I think we've come to the end here.
You're taking this as far as it'll go.
Yeah, this voyage is over. Well then, let's move on to the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people. On purpose.
All right, first order of business, we need a cherry on top.
This is gonna be a tough one.
You mentioned her name. Is it Katie? It's the little
Emily
girl.
Browning.
Emily Browning.
Yeah.
As Kate, yeah.
Yeah.
I
think so.
I'd go with her. None of that crew really.
I would give it up for Carl Urban. I think he deserves an honorable mention, but I'm fine with Kate getting it. I thought she did
what's
a
his
decent job.
name? What's his name?
Munder.
Well,
Mundane.
now you
Mundane.
Mundane. Okay, that's fair. In the tradition of having a guest, Jason, you will get first dibs. And normally we would go over what the results were of the past episode, but just because of the nature of us having to stockpile all these episodes, we don't have the results yet. So Jason, you'll go first, then Edward, since we're alternating, and then we'll make up for it on the back end if the votes have been uneven.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so last time I thought I had a good one with Roy Burns, and I came in third, and Eddie won with Joey. So I don't even know anymore. Like
Friday
up is
the
down,
13th,
black is
part
white.
five,
I don't know. Although Cecilia was definitely on board with you for that one. No.
Who
What you
did
did
I
to those
pick,
sheets?
Vic?
No, fuck that. Kill that guy. You
picked
picked Vic.
Vic too,
Yeah.
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 Oh. I think it's do I pick somebody because they're boring, because they're annoying, or because I'm gonna have to say Murphy then at that point, because I think he is what fucked everything up. He refused to radio anybody. He's pushing Santos to fix the engine. Maybe again. I mean, obviously the Ghost was going to do that no matter what he did, but still he was with the thing with the, and I don't even know how that how the physics, not the physics of that, but why the propane was just there with a tank that with not leading into anything, just
Because they're working class men and they have volatile tanks of toxic gas at all times, and I don't know. Maybe there's some logistical reason for it, but I'll be damned if I can come up with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah, he ignored, kind of ignored the warnings, and just for that reason, I think, I think Gabriel Byrne, you could tell, that he was kind of like, that wasn't the movie he signed up for. I still think he did. I mean, he is very low key, but I don't think he was too bad. He was, just at some point he stopped really having an impact on anything. Yeah. So, so we'll pick Murphy.
Okay. And in the vein of the last time the three of us convened for one of these, I picked Joey because he was the first one that came to mind when I thought, who would I kill in that movie? And I was
gonna pick Katie just to see the reaction because
no.
you had me laughing hysterically after he picked Betty.
Right.
Zack.
Fun stuff. But no, I think I'll just have to rely on other people's probably shared vague memory that I have. I know that when Jack Ferryman came on screen, I remembered oh yeah, I don't like you. I don't remember why, but I don't. Not the actor, but the character. And so I have a feeling people who have seen this movie but maybe haven't seen it in a while might see his face and go, oh yeah, no, I think I dislike him. So and also for the very real justifiable reason that the whole movie happens because of him. if he hadn't walked into the movie, those guys are just on to another job, and they're triumph together, high five, eat hot dogs, smoke, play cards.
That might have been a more interesting movie.
Yeah.
Family. Yeah, we would have gotten a more interesting movie if Jack Ferryman had never sauntered onto, or I don't think, no, because they met in a bar, did they? They weren't on the Arctic Warrior even, their little ship.
It might have been like a Fast and the Furious at Seas movie instead.
Yeah, there you go, family.
They were all exactly.
So I choose him. That's Jack Ferryman. And how about you, Zach?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm just looking at the characters here. There's so who's the purser?
Well, he was the guy that he's one of the crew of the original ship that gunned everybody down in the swimming pool in the flashback.
And who's the chief steward?
Can we find a name?
I think the chief steward is the guy that Francesca shoots in the head, because I think the one that was, I think the first mate, I think, was the one that was talking to Katie at the beginning. I think the chief steward. Think,
well, I'm gonna pick him because he had a nasty way about him.
Yes, he did. Yes.
So whatever it is, like, it just essentially the guy that she shoots in the head, the one that was kind of like killed everyone, and is just like, did I do good? Yeah. Boom. Boom. That guy.
It was like he didn't even last as long as Charlie did in Scream 4. He's just like, nope, yep, you're done.
Yeah, and Francesca is just too interesting to choose, so it can't.
Oh
be.
yeah,
I like her.
Oh, she's an evil bitch, but yeah.
But
she's
I like her.
She's too interesting.
Women behaving badly.
Yeah. Ghost women behaving badly. Well, there you go. You can choose Murphy. You can choose Jack Ferryman, or you can choose who we believe is Chief Steward. But vote your heart, vote your conscience, and that poll will be available in many places. Patreon for one, where even if you're not supporting, you can still head over there and get a free extra vote. But while you're there, check it out, and maybe you will feel like upgrading to a paid tier. You can also vote on our Instagram, so at the Cherry Picker Pod. Follow us there. And also on YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you would prefer to listen to us, the RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Jason, where can they find you on social media?
Oh yeah, Dr. Trinivian's Diabolical Picture Box. It's still the YouTube channel name. I really need to do something with that, but yeah. That's and mini Diabolical Picture Box for my Instagram.
Nice. And
I suck.
No, you can't. If you say it, if you will it, you do. But you can't think like that. But we will put the links down in the description. Edward.
Instagram, YouTube, Letterboxd. Edward is Truth, one word, no spaces, traditional spelling. I deleted my accounts on TikTok and on Blue Sky. It's just too much. I'm new year, paring down, simplifying. I need it in my life. So yeah, that's me. How about you, Zach?
Wow. Okay. You can find my main YouTube channel, Zack Cherry, ZackCherry. Instagram, retro bitch face, all one word. Twitter, ZackCherry8. Letterboxd, Zack Cherry. And Patreon, again, Zack Cherry. Anyway, next week we obviously have Edward's favorite subject, Scream 7, Shrugs.
Le Shrug.
Shrugs, which is the Cherry Picker After Dark, so exclusive to Patreon. But other than that, we will be back in February with a movie that we don't know yet, because it's still early January while we're recording this, so we got to figure that all out. Jason, thank you so much for joining us again. It was a pleasure to have you on.
It's always thank you guys for having me on.
Appreciate it. We'll bring you back real soon, especially for Friday the 13th, part 6, whenever we cover that. But Until then, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and we will be right back.